Algebra 2, target 8. I can solve a quadratic equation. Last night's video, solving by factoring. Today, solving with the quadratic formula. Some of you have heard of this, some of you used it before. Okay, the quadratic formula. When our quadratic is in standard form, very important it's in standard form, there is a formula that was developed that allows us to find the solutions, or the roots, or the x-intercepts. And that is right here. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. There's a song that goes with it. So if you are averse to bad music, plug your ears now. But it's sung to Pop Goes the Weasel. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Just a little memory trick that some people have used to remember the quadratic formula. Doesn't necessarily need to be used. Anyway, let's solve some problems, some quadratics using the quadratic formula. Here's our first problem. Solve x squared plus 3x equals 2. Now first off, you must remember it has to be in standard form. So I'm going to get this in the standard form. That means getting it equal to 0. So I'll subtract 2 from both sides. X squared plus 3x minus 2 equals 0. Compare that to our standard form. We can see that a equals 1, b equals 3, and c equals negative 2. So we will substitute that into our quadratic formula. All right, it's a simple plug and chug. B is 3, so we got x equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 2 all over 2 times a. Sorry, wrote that wrong. All over 2 times 1. Using order of operations, you want to deal with parentheses first. There is an implied set of parentheses right here that you should be dealing with. So we'll do that first. All right, that value is 9 plus 8, because 4 times 2 is 8. But then you got the double negative here, so the double negative really cancels. So it's 9 plus 8, which is 17 all over 2. All right? For most purposes, this is far enough. This is far enough. This is as simple as it gets as a radical. If you wanted, you could break it into two answers. 3 plus the square root of 17 over 2. And then negative 3 minus the square root of 17 over 2. You can even calculate those out if you would like. And doing that, I get 0.56 for the first one. And the second one, I get negative 3.56. But for our purposes, as long as your radicals is reduced as it gets, you can leave your answers like this. All right, let's look at another example. All right, same type of problem. So we need to do the same thing. First, get it into standard form. All right, I'll start by making sure this side gets equal to 0. So I'll subtract 12x and add 9. So on the left side, we get 25x squared minus 30x plus 9 equals 0. All right, our quadratic. You don't need to write the equation out every time. I will, just so you can kind of see it and what gets plugged in. Put that negative back there so we can see it. So b is negative 30, so a negative 30 is 30. Plus or minus b squared. Keep in mind b is negative, but when you square it, you need to square the negative as well. All right, so what we got We'll do our value underneath the square root first. 30 squared. I'm saying 30 and not negative because of the squaring. Be 900 minus 4 times 25 is 100. 100 times 9 is 900. 2 times 25 is 50. All right. Do a little thinking. 900 minus 900 is 0. We're going to add 0 and subtract 0. That really doesn't give us anything different. So this part, we can it'll just kind of fall off because it's 0. So it's 30 over 50. Or divide top and bottom by 5. X is 3/5. Right? You should always plug and chug back in just to verify. Make sure that is the correct answer. I got a calculator in front of me. I'll double check it. You probably should do that on your own. And yeah, that does work. Let me just put this squared in so you don't get confused. That should have been squared throughout. Just a typo on my part. All right, let's look at a couple more. Let's look at the left one first. We'll start by looking for standard form. So I'm going to get it equal to 0. X squared minus 6x plus 4 equals 0. All right, my quadratic. And I am singing it in my head, in case you're wondering. Plug and chug, -6. Negative 6 because of the negative b is 6, plus or minus. -6 squared, I'm going to do that all at once, just so I don't get confused with that negative. -6 times -6 is 36. There's 4 times a, which is 1 times 4, which is c, all over 2a. All right, so we got 6 plus or minus our value underneath the square root. This is 16. 36 minus 16 is 20 over 2. So x equals 6 plus or minus the square root of 20 over 2. We should simplify the square root of 20. That's the same thing as square root of 4 and the square root of 5 over 2, and then the square root of 4 is 2. And 6 over 2 is 3. 2 over 2 reduces. So we got 3 plus or minus the square root of 5. Depending on your teacher, you can, from here, go to a decimal. Depends on, teacher preference. If you wanted to go to a decimal, don't leave it in this form. This is not reduced. We don't like to leave non-reduced radicals. We don't mind leaving it in radicals. We, in fact, prefer it. But if you are going to, you can decimalize it. So you could decimalize it. We get 5.24. Or 5.24, I said. Or going through and doing the subtraction, you get 0.76. All right? So that's the number 1 up there. Try the number 2. I'll erase it, pause the video, and then play it and see how you do on number 2. All right, so number 2, first off, let's get it into standard form. So that means we're going to subtract 2x and add 9. So we'll have 4x squared minus 12x plus 9 equals 0. Use the quadratic formula. Okay, a is 4, b is -12, c is 9. So negative b will be positive 12. Right, b squared would be -12 times -12, which is 144. And then a is 4. All right, let's do underneath the square root first. Okay, 4 times 4 times 9. 4 times 4 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 9 is 144. We got 144 minus 144. That's 0 underneath. 2 times 4 is 8. Really, you don't need to add and subtract 0. It's going to give you the same thing each time, which is 12/8. And 12/8 both have 4 in common. So 12 divided by 4 is 3/2. So, in review, when solving a quadratic using the quadratic formula, first off, you must be in standard form, which is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Very important. You got the 0 solve for. And then you're going to plug it in. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. Being sure to focus on doing the value underneath the square root first. There's a special name for it, which you'll learn in the next video. And then simplifying from there.